Sophisticated propaganda. We next take a look at Beijing's strategies to soften our views on the Chinese Communist Party. We welcome on Peter Schweizer, president of the Government Accountability Institute. Peter Schweizer, thank you so much for joining us here today.
Good to be with you.
Now, the CCP has been offering all expense-paid trips to China to influential people in the West, including politicians, academics, and journalists like MSNBC's Chris Hayes, for instance. What's the end goal of this, and what makes these people the primary targets?
Well, China has a strategy, and they use the term. It's called elite capture. And the idea is that if they can influence the elite of a country, that could be in government, that could be in the media and in culture, and they can get them to have a softer view towards the CCP and China, they are all in favor of it. And so that is about building relationships. That can be romantic relationships. That could be just social relationships, certainly financial relationships. So the goal is to get them to soften their views of what the CCP is doing. So this is not the same as sort of cultural exchange. This is elite capture, and it's designed to turn a elite in a country into a CCP supportive entity.
What are some of the organizations that are running this influence campaign, and is this a component of the CCP's United Workfront department?
Yeah, the United Front is huge, and they use a lot of cultural associations and names. They can be cultural, Chinese Cultural Association in Los Angeles, in New York, or in Boston. They work with the United Front Department, which is part of the Chinese government and part of the CCP. So a lot of times it gets masked as something else. They don't come up and say, come to China, the United Front wants to pay your ticket. It's done in the name of cultural exchange. It's done in the name of face-to-face or people-to-people exchanges, but it's dominated and controlled by the CCP. Again, in the United States and in Europe and in much of the world, you have parts of the private sector, civic culture organizations that do this. That is not the same place in China. So people need to be wary of that. And I think a lot of American elites in particular have this kind of arrogant view that they're smart and sophisticated, and so they're not going to succumb to crude propaganda. It's not crude propaganda that they're looking for. They're very sophisticated in what they want. They call it big help with a little bad mouth. In other words, they know that, some of these people that they capture, some of these elites that they capture are going to have to say bad things about China. That's okay if they're serving the larger purpose of advancing the CCP's interests.
Right now, in the bigger picture also, we're in the middle of a trade war with China, in Trump's words. We've seen some former U.S. officials echoing Beijing's position on tariffs. How important is it for the CCP to have insiders peddling its narratives?
Yeah, no, this is hugely important. And you saw this in the first Trump term as well, when Trump was looking at putting tariffs on China and took a hard line on fentanyl and other issues in 2017. What did China do? Did they go to the White House and lobby? No. They went to Wall Street, they went to Los Angeles, to the entertainment community, and they went to CEOs, executives on Wall Street and said, hey, look, you want access to our market, you want these good deals, you are going to lobby on our behalf in Washington, D.C. And you see a similar sort of thing taking place now. Look at the debate over TikTok, for example. China is not directly doing a lot of lobbying trying to save TikTok. What they're counting on is businesses and influencers who have a large presence on that platform to do the lobbying on their behalf. Or they're looking for Wall Street investors who are early owners of portions of ByteDance TikTok. They're looking for them to do the lobbying in Washington, D.C.
Peter, recently you spoke about the Trump administration using the IRS to trace funding of Antifa. Talk to us a bit about how the administration is able to do this and what we can do about groups that are funneling money into Antifa.
Yeah, it's a big problem. I mean, look, a protest is part of America's history, and we all recognize that protests break out, people expressing their views. The question is, when you have specifically highly organized protests that become violent intentionally, you're talking about something that's very, very different. That requires organization. It requires resources. It requires structure. And also, by the way, if it engages in violent activity, it's a criminal act. So that means you've got issues in terms of assault. People can be charged with assault. but you also have a number of other serious crimes that may be committed by those who are funding and organizing and supporting that criminal activity. The RICO statutes, which were, the racketeering statutes that were instituted to really fight organized crime, they were designed to go after the people that are organizing the crime, meaning we don't want to just arrest the guy that beats up somebody on the street. If there's somebody that ordered that person to go beat somebody up on the street as part of a larger criminal conspiracy, that person should be charged too. That's what RICO's designed for. So when it comes to these protests, there's a lot of discussion about applying the RICO laws to these organized violent protests. And where does the IRS come into this? Well, a lot of these violent organizations are 501c3 IRS recognized tax exempt charities, which means they get tax exempt donations. But it also means that they are under the scrutiny of the IRS if they are violating the law. So my suggestion was, and this seems to be what the Trump administration is doing, is using the IRS as a way to gather forensic information.
All right, Peter Schweizer, thank you very much for your insights here today. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.